Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual, where we bring you the top 40 headlines of the day. I'm Alison LaGrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top stories. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky dialed India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday and detailed recent developments related to Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed India's steadfast position for a peaceful settlement of the conflict. The Ukrainian president said also that he highlighted the importance of restricting the export of Russian energy, especially oil. Zelensky spoke to the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and discussed the ongoing diplomatic efforts with him. And the Ukrainian president's outreach comes as US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are set to meet in Alaska on Friday. Now, ahead of the Alaska summit, the US President Donald Trump has asserted that both Russia and Ukraine will have to cede their land in order to end the war. Trump added that the meeting would reveal if Putin is interested to hold a deal with Ukraine. Zelensky and the other European leaders intend to speak with Trump before he meets Putin. US President Trump ordered the deployment of 800 National Guard troops to capital Washington, D.C. on Monday. He placed the city police under federal control, calling it the Liberation Day. This comes amid claims of rising violent crimes in the capital. Trump signaled that Democratic-led cities like New York and Chicago could be next. Critics, including Mayor Muriel Bowser, slammed the move as an assault on D.C.'s autonomy and renewed calls for statehood. And U.S. President Trump has ordered to extend the reimposition of higher tariffs on Chinese goods for 90 days. Trump ordered the extension hours before a trade truce between Washington and Beijing was set to expire. The halt on the steep tariffs on Chinese goods will stay until the 10th of November. China will also suspend its earlier tariff hike for 90 days, while retaining a 10% duty on U.S. goods. China's President Xi Jinping spoke to his Brazilian counterpart, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. During their telephonic conversation, Xi told Lula that their countries together could set an example of unity and self-reliance for the global south. Xi asserted that China will work with Brazil to set an example of unity. He added that they will jointly build a more sustainable and just planet. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of being in denial about the consequences of the war in Gaza. Albanese slammed the stopping of aid by Israel and attacks on aid distribution points in Gaza. Albanese's remarks came a day after he announced that Australia will recognize a Palestinian state, joining the leaders of France, Britain, and Canada in signaling that they would do so. The Australian government has also criticized Netanyahu's plans for a sweeping new military offensive in Gaza. A small plane landing at a Montana airport crashed into parked aircraft on Monday. The single-engine plane carrying 4 people was attempting to land at the Kalispell city airport. A preliminary investigation showed that the pilot lost control, crashing onto the runway before the plane struck several parked aircraft, igniting fires on multiple planes. 2 of the passengers were slightly hurt and treated at the hospital, while no serious injuries were reported. And violent combat has resumed between the M23 rebels and the DRC army in the eastern part of the country despite a peace treaty. Last month, Kinshasa and the Rwanda-backed M23 signed a declaration of principles committing to a permanent ceasefire. This followed the signing of a peace agreement between the DRC and Rwanda in June. However, these accords have failed to stop the violence. On Monday, the M23 accused Kinshasa of conducting offensive military maneuvers with a view to a large-scale conflict. The Pakistan Army said it has killed at least 50 militants along the border with neighboring Afghanistan in the past 4 days during targeted operations in southwestern Balochistan province. The army said that 3 militants were killed on Monday night in the Sambaza area of Zob district along the border with Afghanistan. These militants were killed in an operation that started on Thursday in Balochistan, this according to the Pakistan Army. And the Thai Army says that a soldier was injured by a landmine near the Cambodian border on Tuesday. This comes just days after the two Southeast Asian neighbors agreed on a ceasefire following last month's deadly 5-day conflict. After the incident, the Thai Army spokesperson said that it is clear evidence that Cambodia has violated the ceasefire, as well as international agreements. It was the 4th time in a few weeks that Thai soldiers have been injured by mines during patrols along the border with Cambodia. And on to some climate news now. The United Kingdom entered its 4th heat wave of the summer, with the temperatures reaching at least 34 degrees Celsius at Heathrow on Tuesday. Now, this came a day after the capital recorded highs of 30 degrees on Monday. Parts of England, including Lincolnshire and East Anglia, were forecast to see similar highs on the 13th of August. An amber heat health warning remains in place for London and parts of the Midlands from Tuesday through Wednesday. Experts warned of nationally significant water shortage despite the recent rainfall. And Portugal is once again battling a wildfire. Hundreds of firefighters worked to contain the blaze in Trancoso, northeast of Lisbon, on the 11th of August. The fire broke out on Saturday, fueled by strong winds and scorching temperatures, and spread rapidly overnight into Monday. By this point in the year, wildfires have burned more than 52,000 hectares across Portugal, over 10,000 hectares above the seasonal average. Scientists warned that hotter, drier summers in the region were sharply increasing the risk of wildfires. In neighboring Spain, more than 2,000 people were evacuated from the province of Cadiz after a wildfire spread on Monday. Strong winds drove flames through eucalyptus and pine forests, sending thick smoke billowing into the sky. North of Madrid, another fire sparked by lightning on Monday night was fueled by winds of over 70 kilometers per hour, damaging homes and leaving one person critically injured. Authorities closed a major highway to keep flames from reaching it as the firefighters worked to contain the blaze. And a series of wildfires swept across the Balkans on Monday after weeks of heat. Strong winds fueled the flames in Albania, Croatia, and Montenegro. In Albania, over 50 new fires were reported on Monday, with many still active. In Croatia, firefighters deployed planes to contain a blaze that destroyed at least 300 hectares. And in Montenegro, flames threatened homes near the Podgorica, forcing evacuations as more than 25 vehicles battled to protect lives and property. And Iraq continues to face extreme heat, with the country suffering a nationwide power outage as temperatures soared on Monday. Iraqi meteorological services warn that the heat wave could last more than a week, with temperatures reaching up to 50 degrees Celsius in some areas. The Electricity Ministry said at least 2 transmission lines failed due to the record heat, high demand and heavy loads in Babylon and Karbala. Now, crews are working to restore electricity in stages, with Basra expected to have power back by dawn on Tuesday. And on to business, economic and tech news now. Shares in Asian markets rose earlier today, supported by the US and China extending their tariff truce by another 90 days. Japanese shares hit a record high, led by tech stocks, as markets reopened after a public holiday. Investors were now focusing on US inflation data, which is expected later today. And Australia's central bank cut its main cash rate by a quarter point to 3.6% earlier today, reaching a two-year low. The country's Reserve Bank cited a slowdown in inflation and a looser labour market as key factors behind the decision. However, the RBA cautioned that uncertainty remained, with policymakers unanimous but cautious about further rate cuts. And President Donald Trump announced that gold imports would not face tariffs. This followed a US customs ruling that had targeted gold bars from Switzerland with 39% duties. Gold futures closed at 2.48% lower on Monday after the announcement. However, earlier today, gold prices nudged higher as investors awaited US inflation data. Meanwhile, the US president met with Intel CEO Vladimir Putin days after demanding his resignation. Donald Trump praised Tan during the meeting, calling it a very interesting one, and highlighting the Intel CEO's success. Last week, Trump demanded Tan's resignation, calling him highly conflicted over his ties to Chinese firms. And Ford announced that it planned to roll out a new family affordable electric vehicle starting in 2027. This includes a mid-size pickup truck with a target price of $30,000 to be assembled at Ford's Louisville plant in Kentucky. The company cited the need to match the cost efficiency of Chinese rivals while investing nearly $2 billion in the facility to retain jobs. A new report suggested that Canada's Gildan Activewear was reportedly in advanced talks to acquire the US clothing firm of Hannes Brands in a deal valuing the company at nearly $5 billion, including debt. Now, the report said an agreement could be reached by the end of this week, but warned the discussions were not yet final and could still collapse. And Paramount has announced that it would pay $7.7 billion for exclusive US broadcast rights to the Ultimate Fighting Championship for 7 years. This deal came days after Paramount finalized its merger with Skydance, marking the first big strategic move by the combined company. The UFC's year-round events will stream on Paramount Plus and air on CBS, ending the pay-per-view model for numbered cards in the US. And billionaire Elon Musk said that his artificial intelligence startup, xAI, would take legal action against tech giant Apple. Musk accused Apple of antitrust violations over how it manages App Store rankings. He claimed that Apple was blocking other AI apps besides OpenAI's ChatGPT from reaching the top spot. And a new report suggested that Chinese authorities were urging local companies to avoid using NVIDIA's H20 artificial intelligence chips, particularly for government or national security-related purposes. The move came after China's state media said that the H20 chips posed security concerns and followed comments from US President Donald Trump suggesting that he might allow NVIDIA to sell a scaled-down advanced chips in China. And GitHub's CEO Thomas Dohmke has said that he would leave Microsoft-owned code hosting platform to launch a new startup. He cited his startup roots as the reason for his decision, but did not disclose details of his next venture. Under his leadership, GitHub has expanded globally and doubled its AI projects. Microsoft acquired GitHub in a $7.5 billion deal in 2018. And moving on to sports, and we start with cricket. Australia's David Warner is now the 5th highest run getter in T20 cricket. He has overtaken Virat Kohli with 13,545 runs. Warner scored 71 or 55 balls for London Spirit in the 100 against Manchester Originals. Despite his incredible knock, London Spirit fell short of the 164 target. India's R. Ashwin has asked Chennai Super Kings for clarity on his role ahead of the IPL 2026. Reports say that he is open to parting ways, if not in their plans. The star Indian spinner was bought for 9.75 crore rupees in last year's mega auction. Ashwin has played only 9 of 14 matches this season, his fewest since 2009. And in football news, Crystal Palace have lost their appeal against the demotion from the Europa League. The Court of Arbitration upheld UEFA's ruling. The case pertains to multi-club ownership rules that Palace has violated. As a result, Nottingham Forest have moved up to the Europa League in their place. And Spain's Football Federation approved moving the Villarreal versus Barcelona match to Miami in December. This could become the first European League match played abroad, but it still requires approval from FIFA and UEFA. The Hard Rock Stadium is set to host if the move is confirmed. And in tennis news, women's world number 1, Aryna Sabalenka, has advanced to the round of 16 of Cincinnati Masters. She beat Emma Raducanu 7-6, 4-6, 7-6 in a marathon 3-hour clash. The match included a 13-juice game in the third set. Sabalenka now has 18 tie-break wins this season, a women's singles record in the professional era. And women's world number 3, Iga Swiatek, has advanced to the Cincinnati Masters round of 16. Her opponent, Marta Kostyuk, withdrew with a wrist injury. 2017 French Open winner Jelena Ostapenko also progressed via a walkover. It was after Camila Osioro had pulled out with abdominal injury. And Japanese boxing faces scrutiny after 2 fighters died from brain injuries on the same night. 28-year-olds Shigetoshi Katari and Hiromasa Urakawa fought on the 2nd of August at an event in Tokyo, and both died days later following brain surgery. Japan Boxing Commission will hold an emergency meeting today. Officials also expected to discuss safety measures next month, and reports indicated rapid dehydration for weigh-ins, which increases brain injury risk. And Italian athlete Mattia De Bertolis died at the World Games in Chengdu in China. The 29-year-old collapsed during an orienteering event on the 8th of August. He succumbed to death 4 days later. The event took place amid scorching heat and intense humidity. Orienteering involves navigating an unmarked course with a map and a compass. And in chess, Bardana Sivanandan became the youngest female player to beat a grandmaster. She is just 10 years old. She defeated 60-year-old Peter Wells at the British Chess Championships in Liverpool. Sivanandan broke the previous record set by American Carissa Yip in 2019. And this milestone helped her to achieve her first woman grandmaster norm. And Indian Grandmaster Divya Deshmukh continued her winning spree. She has stormed into the quarterfinals of the Women's Speed Chess Championship. She crushed China's Lei Tingji in dominating 10-3 victory. Divya won 8 games, drew 4, and lost just 1 in the online event. And in entertainment news now, Netflix has signed a new first-look deal with Prince Harry and Meghan's production company. Streaming giant announced on Monday. The agreement gives Netflix the option to approve or reject any new show or film idea from the couple before other studios. The deal is on a much smaller scale than their 2020 arrangement, and so far few projects beyond the couple's own life stories have been produced. Universal and DreamWorks Animation delayed the release of Shrek 5 to June of 2027. The movie was earlier set for December 2026, but was pushed back for a second time. However, the new summer release date follows the studio's big success with animated films in that season. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy and Cameron Diaz will return along with Zendaya joining the cast. Shrek 5 will hit the theaters a quarter century after the original film's release. And Taylor Swift announced her new album called The Life of a Showgirl on Tuesday. She revealed it in a teaser clip for her boyfriend Travis Kelce's podcast New Heights. She is set to appear on the podcast on Wednesday alongside Travis and his brother Jason. Now, this will be her first interview since being named Time's Person of the Year in 2023. Fans are expecting more details about the album during the episode. An auction of Whitney Houston's personal items raised thousands for her Legacy Foundation. The sale included awards, fashion pieces and jewelry from the late singer's collection. However, the highest bids went to a custom Mark Boa catsuit and a 1994 FIFA jersey. Meanwhile, other iconic items like her Bob Mackie jacket and Harley-Davidson coat were also sold. The online auction ended on Monday morning with all proceeds supporting the youth scholarships and programs. And Snoop Dogg has been confirmed as the headline performer for the 2025 Australian Football League Grand Final. The Californian hip-hop star will take the stage at the Melbourne Cricket Ground in this September. However, fans will have to wait for announcements of other performers. The AFL CEO said Snoop Dogg perfectly matches the energy and culture of the event. The match and performance are set for the 27th of September. And that's all we have for you on this edition of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to Firstpost.